4 friends woke up to find themselves trapped in a locked room with iron chains fastened around their necks and an old-fashioned camera placed in front of them. They looked around in confusion, completely unaware of what had happened. At that moment, a masked man silently entered the room. He remained completely quiet, only adjusting the camera's angle without saying a word. Once everything was ready, he pressed the switch.
All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm your host.
Then, the masked man turned to a group of mannequins and shouted excitedly, announcing that 4 new contestants had arrived. He then began revealing each of their identities one by one. It was clear he had done thorough research on all of them beforehand. After finishing the introductions, the masked man left, leaving the 4 staring helplessly at each other. Among them was a man named James, who believed he had been chosen to participate in a prank show, secretly feeling pleased with himself. Not long after, the masked man returned and announced the beginning of the first round of rock, paper, scissors. He said the ultimate winner would receive a mysterious reward. Although none of them really understood what was going on, they obeyed his instructions. Soon, the game officially began.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot!
The masked man called Melissa, who had chosen paper, to step forward, then pulled out a sharp sheet of paper and sliced it across the corner of her mouth. Before anyone could react, he quickly picked up a stone and hurled it at Matthew, who had chosen rock. Then he pulled out a pair of scissors, walked up to James, and without a word, cut off his finger. Finally, it was Anita's turn, and the masked man drew a gun. Terrified, Anita begged for mercy non-stop, but when the masked man pulled the trigger, what came out wasn't a gunshot, but the sound of a lighter igniting. Anita was already frozen in fear. The masked man then pressed a button, and the chain around Anita's neck suddenly retracted, slamming her violently against the wall and knocking her unconscious. No one knew how much time passed before Anita finally woke up from her faint. The others were still dazed, clearly unable to recover from the terror they had just experienced. James's reaction was the most extreme. He began accusing the other 3 of working with the masked man, convinced they were after his fortune. Now, he refused to trust anyone. Suddenly, the lights went out without warning. Fear gripped their hearts once again, and they all stood still against the wall, afraid that any movement might trigger the masked man's cruel punishment. Soon, the masked man reappeared, holding a steel pipe. It was time for the second round of the game. He slowly pulled open a curtain, revealing a shining wheel behind it. He called it the Wheel of Pain. The very name sent chills down their spines. Before starting the next round, the masked man suddenly changed the tone of the game and demanded that they each confess the most shameful thing they had ever done in their lives. His eyes locked onto the loudest one in the group, James, and he ordered him to speak first. But James stubbornly refuses to cooperate, saying he won't play such a boring game. Before he could finish, the masked man swung the steel pipe down hard between his legs. The pain was so unbearable that James immediately gave in. He confessed that years ago he had drunk and driven, causing a car accident that killed an innocent woman. His father took all the blame for him, while James walked away free. What made it worse was the way he said it, with a casual, mocking tone, as if it wasn't a big deal at all. That made the masked man even angrier, and he instantly raised the steel pipe again to punish James. Then his gaze shifted to Anita. Seeing her shaking her head in fear, his temper exploded, and he pressed the cold steel pipe tightly against her neck. The chilling pressure made Anita gasp for air. Finally, under the mysterious person's threat, Anita tremblingly tells her story. To pay for her mother's surgery, she had once used her technical skills to create an adult website and earned a large amount of money from it. Anita said she had been foolish back then and deeply regretted it. Tears streamed down her face as she apologized for her actions. Seeing her genuine remorse, the masked man decided to let her off, for now. Next was Matthew. Unlike Anita and James, Matthew seemed completely compliant. Without resistance, he admitted that his worst act was deceiving an elderly couple and stealing their identification cards, planning to use them for online fraud. But he never managed to make any money from it. The masked man showed no reaction, perhaps thinking Matthew's deed wasn't serious enough. Finally, it was Melissa's turn. Her face was pale with fear, but she didn't dare hesitate. She confessed that she had once co-managed a dog rescue shelter with others. When funds ran out, the shelter was on the verge of collapse. In desperation, she learned that selling dogs to fighting rings could bring in cash, so she agreed to it to keep the shelter running. After Melissa finished describing her actions, Anita, who was also trapped in the same desperate situation, couldn't listen any longer. It was clear she couldn't accept such cruel behavior. But Melissa showed no remorse at all, even defending herself by saying that the dogs would die sooner or later, and that they had simply helped her solve an urgent problem before their time came. The masked man nearly struck her down on the spot, but he decided it wasn't the right time yet. They had all confessed what they believed to be the worst things they'd ever done. However, the masked man announced that one of them was lying. Clearly, he had already done thorough research on every one of them. Soon, the second round of the Wheel of Pain officially began. The masked man first unlocked the chain around Melissa's neck, making her the first participant of the round. Melissa nervously spun the wheel. Her hands were trembling as she watched it slowly come to a stop. The pointer landed precisely on the camera symbol. The masked man ordered her to stand in front of the camera that had been prepared earlier. He handed her a viewfinder and told her to look through it. He explained that there would be 3 images inside, each showing a famous landmark from a different country, and if Melissa could identify all 3 correctly, she would be spared. If she failed, she would have to face a painful consequence. Luckily, Melissa answered the first 2 images without hesitation, but when the 3rd image appeared, she hesitated.
Is it Philadelphia? Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa. The correct answer was Akron. Akron, Ohio.
Since she didn't answer all of them correctly, punishment was inevitable. Anita and Matthew quickly begged the masked man to give Melissa another chance. Surprisingly, he agreed. Melissa took a deep breath and pulled the lever again. It turned out there was a thin silver needle inside the viewfinder, and every time the lever was pulled, it moved forward slightly. 3 correct answers meant safety. Anything less meant pain. The masked man grew increasingly excited, eager for what came next. He decided to spin the wheel himself. This time, the chosen tool was a power drill. He ordered Anita to push the drill into Matthew's ear and keep going until it came out the other side, but Anita simply didn't dare to do it. The masked man threatened that if she refused, he would kill all 4 of them himself. For the sake of her own life and the others, Anita had no choice but to obey. However, Anita still couldn't bring herself to do it, and in her panic, she accidentally dropped the drill onto the floor. Seeing his only drill destroyed, the masked man flew into a rage. It was the only one he had. He stormed over to the camera, removed the tape, and walked to the back room. He swiftly made a mark on the videotape. Even through the mask, the anger on his face was unmistakable. Meanwhile, the 4 captives finally had a brief moment to rest. However, before they could recover, the masked man had already returned to the room. He announced the 3rd game. He explained that he had once surveyed 100 random people to find out which part of the body they thought caused the greatest pain, and he had compiled the results into a ranked list. Whoever guessed the top answer would be spared from punishment. Matthew said the head, Melissa chose the knees. After a moment's thought, Anita said the stomach. James, after much hesitation, chose the neck. The masked man unfolded the slip of paper and revealed the results. Out of the 100 people, not a single one had chosen the knees. That meant Melissa would be the one punished again. The masked man pulled back the chains around their necks and activated a hydraulic press above them. As the massive machine moved slowly overhead, fear filled their eyes. The press came to a stop right above Melissa's head. Without hesitation, the masked man hit the switch. When the press was just 0.01 centimeters from crushing her skull, he suddenly pressed the pause button. He turned to the others and asked if anyone was willing to take Melissa's place. If someone did, she would live. But whoever replaced her would die. Throughout history, few people have ever chosen to sacrifice themselves for another. When no one spoke up, the masked man lost interest in waiting. He pressed the button again, and the hydraulic press came down, splitting Melissa's head in an instant. Afterward, he calmly removed the tape from the camera and went to the back room to label it. Then he dragged Melissa's body away. James tried to use the moment to break his chain, but it was no use. Soon, the masked man returned, pushing in a television. Melissa stared at the woman on the screen, feeling she looked strangely familiar. Then, the masked man walked up and removed his mask. Anita immediately recognized him. It was Barry, the once famous television host. Years ago, Anita had been an intern at the same TV station. During a break, while some colleagues were watching a news report about a sexual assault case, one of the employees, Rebecca, mentioned that Barry had also behaved inappropriately toward female staff members at the TV station. Anyone who successfully exposed him could receive a 6-figure reward. The woman on the screen was Rebecca. Rebecca suggested that Anita report Barry, saying it would be an easy way for her to get the money needed for her mother's surgery. But Anita refused, believing it would be wrong to do so. In reality, Barry wasn't the kind of man Rebecca had described. The reason Rebecca tried to ruin Barry's reputation was simply because he had criticized her at work, and she couldn't accept it. In fact, Barry was an upright man, always kind and considerate toward his colleagues. Even when Anita was just an intern, he personally bought her a cake to celebrate her birthday. But the moment he placed his hands on Anita's shoulders, Rebecca immediately stopped him, warning him to behave himself. Barry felt embarrassed, quickly apologized to Anita, and walked away. Afterward, Rebecca kept encouraging Anita to file a report, and in the end, Anita accused Barry of harassment. That accusation destroyed Barry's reputation, forcing him to leave the TV station. His wife and child abandoned him as well. Anita, however, received the 6-figure reward. From that moment on, Barry changed completely. He swore that everyone who had falsely accused him would pay for what they did. Now that James finally knew the truth, he begged Barry to spare him, claiming he had nothing to do with it. But Barry was already consumed by hatred, and anyone connected to Anita would suffer the same fate. Seeing Barry unmoved, James took the chance to punch him hard and shoved him to the ground. Just as James tried to follow up, Barry hit a button on the control panel. The chains around their necks released a surge of electricity, instantly knocking them all unconscious. When they regained consciousness, James and Matthew were lying on metal slabs, each with a stitched-up wound across his abdomen. Faced with Barry's cruel and deranged behavior, James could only scream in pain and despair. Next, it was Anita's turn to face punishment. Barry threw a knife toward her and told her that inside both James and Matthew's stomachs was a key. He ordered her to choose one person to cut open, and with the key, she could unlock the door and leave. James was terrified, begging Anita for mercy, promising her great wealth if she spared him. Years ago, Anita had accused Barry only to earn enough money for her mother's surgery. It was clear that money had always been her weakness. Anita slowly walked toward Matthew. Seeing this, James let out a slight sigh of relief, thinking she had chosen Matthew. However, completely beyond James's expectations, Anita had secretly loved Matthew for a long time. She only walked over to check his wound before turning around and heading toward James. Holding back the nausea rising in her throat, Anita trembled as she cut open James's abdomen, searching through the blood for the key. She found it and rushed toward the metal door. But Barry's torment would not end so easily. When she inserted the key into the lock, no matter how she turned it, the door wouldn't open. Anita instantly breaks down, furiously demanding why Barry lied to her. Barry sneered, saying this was the price of betrayal. He wanted her to know what it felt like to be tricked and destroyed. By now, James has already stopped breathing due to the fatal wound in his abdomen. Now, only Matthew and Anita remained alive. Barry released the lock on Matthew's restraints. Freed, Matthew slowly stood up and picked up the knife from the floor, his eyes fixed on Anita. It turns out Matthew has also had a secret crush on her all along. In that moment, they finally understood each other's feelings. But it was far too late. To make sure Anita would survive, Matthew took his own life without hesitation. Just then, a thick white smoke filled the entire room, instantly knocking Anita unconscious. When she woke up, she was shocked to find the door standing open. She stepped out in disbelief and saw Barry waiting outside. Barry told her there was one last game. In front of her were 3 gift boxes. If she chose correctly, she would gain her freedom. But Anita already knew the truth. No matter what she chose, death awaited her. Still, she refused to give up. She promised she could clear Barry's name. She admitted that her accusations had been lies born of desperation for money. She said she could help him rebuild his life, but it was too late for redemption. Years ago, Anita had destroyed Barry's life to save her mother, and now her apology meant nothing. Barry was beyond forgiveness. He demanded she make her choice. With no other option, Anita pulled a random string to open a box, revealing a cake inside. Back then, Barry had even prepared a cake to celebrate Anita's birthday, yet he was later falsely accused of workplace harassment, which made Anita sink even deeper into guilt. But as Barry approached, Anita secretly took out a small card she had picked up from the floor. Driven by her survival instinct, Anita pushed the metal cage aside with all her strength and escaped. She ran desperately, trying to get away from Barry's control, but fate was already written. Before she reached the boundary of the compound, the metal collar around her neck suddenly activated. Her body convulsed violently, and she collapsed to the ground. In the end, Barry forcibly dragged her back. He forced her into a chair, pressing her head toward the cake. Anita fought back with all her strength, but her body was weak from the shocks. Her resistance was useless, and Barry slammed her face into the cake. When she lifted her head again, she realized she was unharmed. She thought she had won. Barry calmly unfastened her restraints and told her he had good news and bad news. The good news was that she was finally free. The bad news was that the cake was filled with a chemical compound. A searing pain spread across Anita's face, and her skin turned bright red in seconds. The burning sensation was unbearable, piercing deep into her nerves. Her vision began to fade. Moments later, everything went dark. The chemical spread through her body, causing her to spasm violently on the cold floor. She struggled for a few seconds, then went still. Barry watched it all unfold, a look of relief and grim satisfaction slowly spreading across his face. His revenge was complete. Those who ruined him had finally paid the price. That was the story of the 2025 American horror film, I'm Your Host. That's all for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.